And welcome to The Verdict. Kent Myers sitting in for Mick Cornett today. He's not here, but we'll be back in a week or so. I don't know why I get to do the Christmas show and the New Year's show, and Mick is off doing other things, but that's the way it worked out. I'm happy to be with you at least. Happy New Year to you. I hope your 2012 has been good and your 2013 will even be better. Well, speaking of 2013 and whether it will be better or not, we've got a familiar face joining us today. If you watch the Business Roundtable show, Jim Dunlap from the Oklahoma State Chamber will be joining us to talk about the upcoming legislative session, what kind of issues he's going to be dealing with, and how he's going to be working out at the legislature and with the state chamber. So today we're going to be talking about what to expect in the upcoming legislative session with Jim Dunlap of the Oklahoma State Chamber. So come back after this commercial break. You're watching The Verdict. We'll see you in just a minute.
Well, prices at the pump are hitting new highs this week. In other news,
gasoline is expected to top $4 a gallon this week.
expect drivers seeing sticker shock at the pump.
OPEC has raised the price of oil again, and Wall Street worries.
Well, a full tank of gas is going to set drivers back.
Straight ahead, the latest news on
If you need big accounting firm expertise but aren't happy with the value or level of partner engagement from your current national firm, contact Hogan Taylor. Hogan Taylor provides national-level public accounting expertise with high-touch, local partner service in all areas of tax, audit, business valuation, and litigation support. Contact us at hogantaylor.com/The Verdict. Hogan Taylor, big enough to know, small enough to care.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Myers flying solo today. Mick Cornett is off doing whatever he does in advance of the new year. We are pleased today to have with us a person who for some of you will be a familiar face, Jim Dunlap. He is the chairman of the Governmental Affairs Committee of the Oklahoma State Chamber. He is also the host of Inside the Issues, which you see on this station. And he's going to talk to us today about what's going on at the Capitol. Jim did his undergraduate work at Drury College. He got his Master's of Business Administration at Northeastern State University in Tahlequah. He spent 8 years in the Oklahoma House of Representatives, 8 years in the Oklahoma State Senate, where he was a minority floor leader at the time. He is the president of a Dunlap Construction Company, and a little known fact, he's quite a golfer, and in fact 1 year served as a golf professional at a country club. It wasn't Dunlap Country Club.
No.
But in any event, we're really pleased to have him join us today and talk about what he's about to get started doing out at the Capitol. Welcome.
Kent, thank you for having me.
We're really glad to have you.
Well, the state chamber called and said that they were going to be out of state at a conference, and could I come in and fill in on their behalf? And I said I'd be honored. So
well,
thank you.
When I found out that you were available, well, I jumped on it.
Well, thank you, sir.
Now that we have all that out of the way.
That's right.
Tell us about, now some of our viewers will know a lot about the state chamber, some may not. So will you tell our Oklahoma City and Tulsa viewers what is the mission of the State Chamber of Commerce and how it differs perhaps from the Tulsa and Oklahoma City chambers?
Well, obviously the state chamber's been around for a long time, Kent, and they have always looked out for the business interest of their members. I mean, membership has its privilege of any organization, and the state chamber is no different, but it is a statewide based membership organization of corporations, LLCs, whatever they may be. And, the small businessman out in Oklahoma cannot be down at the Capitol a lot, watching out for the regulations that come or the laws that are passed. So the state chamber is an advocate on behalf of the business community to make Oklahoma as business friendly, to create jobs, create opportunities here for those companies that are currently here to expand, and to also bring in other companies. So I serve as the chairman of one of their committees, which is the Legislative Affairs Committee. And we meet regularly during session to try to communicate and collaborate with all the businesses in Oklahoma as to what their interests are out of the state capitol. You mentioned the Oklahoma City and Tulsa area. Why does Oklahoma City have a chamber and Tulsa have a chamber? Well, they have different interests. They have, in Tulsa, you have American Airlines, for an example. And in Oklahoma City, you have Tinker Air Force Base. It's a different situation. Tinker can be a lot of federal issues, and Oklahoma City Chamber works that. Tulsa, American Airlines can also be state or federal, so Tulsa works that. But the state chamber can work on behalf of both, watch both, look out for both. And as you know, I'm from Bartlesville originally. Bartlesville, when I was leaving the legislature, recruited a Walmart distribution center just south of town. And the state chamber was very beneficial in helping us bring in and find the right connections to help that. So the state chamber has statewide basis for the business community to look and address issues for them.
So there are legitimate reasons a business would want to be a member of both its local chamber and the state chamber.
Well, I believe so. I think it's very important.
Because the local chamber is not going to have the state capital activity that the state chamber has.
But they have the access through the state chamber to get that done on behalf of their membership also.
So you take input at the state chamber level from local chambers and local business folks, whether they're a member or not, I would.
And probably 90% of your local chambers are also members of the state chamber and and the U.S. chamber for that fact. The state chamber works with the U.S. chamber on federal issues. So the small local chambers of communities, including the Broken Arrows, the Bethanys, the Tulsas, the Oklahoma Cities, the Bartlesvilles, the Ponca cities, they come through the state chamber and say, hey, we've got an issue. How can we get this addressed at the legislature? Fred Morgan and his team over at the state chamber will say, let's put it to our Legislative Affairs Committee. Let's see what we can do to benefit job creation in Oklahoma.
As chairman of the Legislative Affairs Committee, when the legislature comes into session, are you out there most of the time?
If they're there, we're there. I mean, it's legislators. It's interesting, and really and honestly, they come. Some nights they work until late hours of the night, and depending on deadlines, legislator will come off the floor at 8 o'clock at night and say, "What are you doing here?" And I say, keeping my eyes on you guys. And the state chamber and their team, Fred Morgan, Chad Wormington, Gwendolyn Caldwell, Mike Sini, and others, usually they're the ones always out there. You always want to be able to say to your members, we were there, we saw it, we won, we lost, whatever it may be. But we will always communicate the position on behalf of the business community.
Do you do this on your own, or do you have people that help you?
Well, for me personally, I'm, as you said, served in the legislature for 16 years. I went from the dark side to the very dark side of lobbying. And I have my own private firm that I do the lobbying from and government consulting. The state chamber has multiple members. Some of them are contract lobbyists like myself. Some of them are corporate affairs executives within the corporations. Phillips Petroleum Company has H.J. Reed, who is the chairman I'm replacing now in the Legislative Affairs Committee. He is internal to Phillips 66. So he comes to the meetings at the state chamber as just that company, whereas I represent possibly 5 to 10 different chamber members at these meetings, and we will communicate and network over the issues that we feel are important, bring those up to the level of the state chamber, to the state chamber's board of directors, who then decides what the state chamber's legislative agenda will be. Of course, we're in that process now here in the fall and early winter of December. As session begins February 4th, that the legislators will know where the business community is.
Well, it seems to me that your prior experience, 8 years in the House and 8 years in the Senate, would be invaluable in what you do.
Well, I hope so. I hope that's why people hire me. I like to say that I served in the minority my whole career as a Republican out the legislature. Now things have changed and the Republicans are in the majority. But I think that was even a blessing to me in that I now know what the Democrats are thinking in the minority as the loyal opposition, and there is a responsibility. As the Democrats come to the floor, and even though they're outnumbered, it's amazing. 25 years ago when I started out there, it is exactly opposite of what it was when I started. And so it takes a long time to change things in government, and I think that's the design of a democracy and a republic and a bicameral chamber that we have. So it's designed that way. The Founding Fathers made it great and wonderful. My expertise is that of, yes, I have the experience of serving, but I also have the experience, as you said, of being a small businessman, a general contractor in Bartlesville, and I know what laws can do to regulate business.
I don't know to whom would be the right person to express this, but I'll just try it out on you. It seems to me that Oklahoma can be flawed justifiably from time to time on some of their legislative activities, but not on the transition of power from the Democrats, if you will, to the Republicans. It was about as seamless as it can be. I know it wasn't, but it was about as seamless as it could be, and when it got to be an absolute 50-50 split, they had President Pro Tems, I think, of the Senate, and Glenn Coffey and
Mike Morgan.
Mike Morgan on the Democratic side worked together, and I think it's exemplary what both parties did to make government work rather than just bicker and fight. And I mean, they had their differences, but I think all of them are to be congratulated over that.
They've done a superb job, and Oklahomans are not that much different. Yes, there's 5% of the Republicans and probably 5% of the Democrats that are pretty far out to the sides. But you know, a conservative Democrat in Oklahoma would be kicked out of the Republican caucuses, and some other states of being too conservative, too right wing. You know, agricultural Democrats and historically have played a part in Oklahoma's history. It's just turned. You know, the true beliefs and philosophies of Oklahomans are truly in the conservative base, and you see that across the board.
Well, it was certainly an exemplary transition, I would think. We've got to take a little break here and get some interesting commercials, which I hope you'll watch because they pay our bills. We're visiting with Jim Dunlap from the Oklahoma State Chamber, Legislative Affairs Director for the State Chamber. We'll be right back.
The thing that has made the most sense for me is realizing that I am still an educator, and that is what I do at the Chickasaw Nation. I'm Dr. Amanda Cobb-Greetham. I'm a historian, and I'm Chickasaw. The Chickasaw Cultural Center is amazing. It is a very, very special place devoted to the sharing and to the celebration of Chickasaw history and culture. State-of-the-art technology, exhibits that are not like anything I've ever seen. The Spirit Forest is incredible, and you feel as if you have actually just walked into a forest with huge trees all around you. It's timeless, and yet it's sort of also representative of our time depth, to really just sort of reach through time and touch the past. By the end of the exhibits, you really have a sense of Chickasaw cultural and political resurgence, and the extent to which we are a healthy, dynamic, and vital tribe today. Chickasaws have always been an inclusive people. This is something for the whole community and for the state of Oklahoma.
Hear that? It's the sound of an industry, 83,000 strong, creating jobs for nearly 350,000. A $52 billion a year being pumped into our economy. It's the sound of Oklahoma's oil and natural gas industry, our heart for the state, and our people. And it beats on and on and on.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
We're back. We're visiting with Jim Dunlap, the representative of the state chamber on legislative matters to the Oklahoma House and Senate. And a familiar face to you as host of Inside the Issues. Jim, can you trace for our viewers what you envision to be the primary issues that the legislature will be facing that are of interest to the state chamber?
Well, in every year that comes out the Capitol, the budget is the number one priority and the only really constitutionally required item that the legislature must pass. So budget, which includes tax reforms. Last year you saw a lot of things on elimination of the income tax in Oklahoma. That's an issue for business recruitment in Oklahoma, and the chamber watches that very closely. Now, it also has to be done in a way that we hope will be not endanger any of the core government services. Infrastructure of transportation needs is important to the state chamber also, as you well know. So the budget will be one of them. Workers' compensation reform will be a very high priority. It always is of the state chamber. Workers' comp rates in Oklahoma for business is one of the highest complained issues that we at the state chamber receive. But it's not just one simple issue of whether or not it's the medical reimbursement or if it's the legal fees that are being charged. It's also the court system that's used. You know, currently we have a comps court here in Oklahoma. There is a lot of talk about doing an opt-out to where companies that are big enough can self-insure. Then there's also the talk about an administrative court system. I'm no lawyer, but the lawyers can tell you a lot about that. So it will be very dynamic on that issue there. I think lawsuit reform will come back this year in some context of being business friendly, that the state and the U.S. Chamber are actually working on some initiatives through the legal reforms that need to be done to keep Oklahoma in that path of being more business friendly. And then the Governor Fallon has a lot of consolidation, government efficiencies as the buzzwords. You know, we at the state chamber like that idea, but we also want to make sure that it is not done in a way that burdens business to where they can't operate in Oklahoma. So those efficiencies as they're done also need to be done in a way that would help create jobs. One of the big issues that probably the viewers don't see that we talk about on Inside the Issue somewhat, water. Water is, you know, Oklahoma City and Tulsa, I think water issues are going to be something that the legislature, the governor, and the business community are going to have to address.
Let me go back kind of more or less in the order that you listed them. I may not be exactly in the same order. One question I hear from time to time, and I ask myself quietly from time to time, is why is it the legislature can't get the budget done earlier and wait until the last couple of minutes, and then there used to be the practice of hanging a cloth over the clock and that sort of thing, just down to the last minute. Now, as a lawyer, I know that as part of the lawyer's creed is to put everything off until the last possible minute, so I really kind of understand it. But what do you say to the folks that say, why can't we do the budget earlier? You've been out there in both chambers. Why is it that it takes so long? Well,
we have a very conservative constitutional way that we appropriate our money in Oklahoma. You know, here in December, the Equalization Board will meet. They'll certify a number that they expect off historical data to come in during fiscal year 2013, 2014. We're now doing the budget for FY14. Then the governor will present her State of the State address off that, her fiscal budget off that. Then in late February, the Equalization Board comes back in, looks at the data for the last 60 days and says, has it changed? Do we need to tweak it? Here, legislature, is your final number that you have to appropriate.
So the legislature doesn't have a starting point until late February?
It's really early March, they can, you know. Now, you know, Texas meets every other year, which there's a lot of wisdom to that. Some states meet and only have budget years that they work only on the budget. That's something we maybe should look at. I don't know. We do both. We look at statutory changes every year. We look at the budget every year. So the first 12 weeks of the session really are dedicated to legislative action of statutory changes, and those being non-budget related. We have in the Constitution, which I think is a very wise thing, of the populous state that we were when we became a state, is we have a single subject rule.
Right.
So we have lots of legislation that has to do with single subjects. If we could log roll, you would only have probably 100 bills a year get to the governor,
Right.
but we have 2,500 introduced. We have at the end maybe 250 to 300 actually get to the governor outside of appropriation. So the appropriation process really doesn't begin in earnest until after those first 12 weeks. That is why it's delayed. Now, could it start? Yes. Is there talk of that? Yes. One of the issues that we at the State Chamber are working on this year, the last 3 or 4 years, we've done the general budget through a general appropriation measure, which is a lump sum to each agency and is not the line item, which historically has been done up until about 3 years ago. The business community would like to see it go back to the line item, to see the legislature detail in their budget their legislative intent. We believe that's in the best interest of everybody for transparency and not putting too much power, quite honestly, in state agency directors that they can decide where the money's spent.
Is there any significant, is there any idea that there'll be a significant movement toward that?
This year there will be. You know, when you complimented them about being the 50-50 split and getting along, that's fine and dandy, except that we couldn't get the budget process finalized. This year, the Republicans, quite honestly, are in the majority at such a number that they can go back to the line item appropriations, and we're trying to ask them to do that.
Well, that will allow one to put a sharper focus on a particular bill and see where the money's going.
Well, the real dynamic is in the House. It's new leadership. You're going to get to that in a minute, I'm sure, with T.W. Shannon. But we also have a new appropriations chairman, Scott Martin, out of Norman. Well qualified, can do the job. He was vice chairman the last 2 years. He will be the one that we'll have to look to. Clark Jolly over in the Senate. Senator Jolly took over after the sad passing of Senator Myers out of Ponca City. So we have some longevity getting ready to occur in those committees that maybe we can get back to that process and hopefully start it in early April. And you know, this year the final Friday in May that they're allowed to meet to is the Friday after Memorial Day. Historically, they have tried to adjourn early before Memorial Day weekend so they can go home to their families and begin the summer vacation with them. That will be the $64 question out there at the Capitol. Can we get done the Friday before Memorial Day?
That's instead of putting the cloth over the clock.
And that's exactly why we have the shortened sessions amendment that Henry Bellman put in, because of what you said really did happen. They put the cloth over the clock and met past midnight.
Yeah. Let me go to workers' comp reform. We hear this every year.
Sure.
We're going to have workers' comp reform, and then we hear there's been significant reform passed. We're doing fine, and then the next year we hear workers' comp reform because the rates haven't come down. Now the Republicans are in a significant majority position in both houses. Are the Republicans in a position where they can do something to the workers' comp system that will in fact bring the rates down for the business person?
You're assuming that the Republicans all agree with each other. And that is an assumption in politics that does not work.
Well,
so,
I realized it was silly the minute you said that.
No, it's the caucus is 72 in the House and 32 in the Senate, and there are members of both caucuses in the Republican side that are from the profession of legal work and are lawyers, and I'm very thankful they're there. When I came into the legislature, I was a home builder, and I did not know the different aspects of the consequences of passing certain laws. So do they all agree on what workers' comp reform is? Gosh, no. Yeah. But there are ways that we look at other states for best practices for where the rates are lower in those states. And I think that involves the insurance industry, it involves the legal side of the equation, it involves the medical industry. And so it involves the employers and their safety records and what they have to do to train their employees to work in a safe environment. So those are very important. All aspects have to be at the table, and I think that's what they'll look at.
We are out of time. I want to ask you now on the air so I can get you on record. Will you come back later and do another show with us, and we can finish up some of this important discussion we're having, particularly after the legislature's in session?
Anytime I can make Fred Morgan look good, I'll do it.
Well, you make Mick Cornett look good too. Join us. We're going to take a break. Thanks to Jim Dunlap from the Oklahoma State Chamber. We'll see you in just a minute.
Good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back. Thanks to Jim Dunlap for sharing his view about what's coming in the what's going to be coming forward in the legislative session and what the state chamber is interested in. In that connection, if you want to be in touch with Jim, you can check his website www.okstatechamber.com, or of course you can check with us on theverdict.tv. In the couple of seconds we've got left, thank you for watching us this year in 2012. Make a New Year's resolution to watch us in 2013 because we appreciate it. Happy New Year.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.